We're looking at the best picks in fantasy football by round. So every single round, who are the best picks? We got Mason here with us from Flock Fantasy here to help us sort this out. So I'll go ahead and start, and I'll start with round one. Obviously, in round one, all of these players are elite. You can't go wrong taking any of them. So I'll just pick my favorite. One of my favorite guys to take in round one this year is Jamar Chase. Jamar Chase, obviously, since his rookie year, has been a little bit disappointing, but this year is going to be the year. If he can stay healthy, if Burrow can stay healthy, T. Higgins can stay on the field, this is the year you're going to see his ceiling that he really has. This is a guy that could easily be a top 3 wide receiver this year. You're getting him around the wide receiver 5 in the pick 5, pick 6 range. And with Jamar Chase, I think he's not only a safe option because I think he's set to dominate while he's on the field this year. He's obviously a really high ceiling player. We really like him. So Jamar Chase is my first round pick. Mason, I'll let you kind of sort out the second round here.
So second round, I'm going to be boring because both these guys are going at the top of the second round, right? I'm not going to the end because I think you do have a teardrop where a lot of the wide receivers that are available in round 2 will look similar to the wide receivers available in round 3. So if you have the option to go with Jahmyr Gibbs, Jonathan Taylor, or Saquon Barkley, that's what I really want to do in round 2. It's honestly kind of up to your personal preference. I maybe prefer Gibbs. I maybe prefer Jonathan Taylor and then Barkley. I rank them in that fashion. But just structurally, being able to get that elite level wide receiver like Avery mentioned in round 1, and then still getting a running back in round 2 that has RB1 overall upside, that's still not there at the age cliff, that projects to be in a good offense, that has a lot of big play potential as well. I think it sets you up to be able to hammer in wide receiver values in the middle rounds, which I'm sure we're about to talk about some of those guys being our favorite values later.
All right, I'm not going to let you cheat. If you had to pick somebody at the 2-3 turn, who are you going in the second round?
If I had to go at the 2-3 turn, I think maybe Brandon Ayuk, but it's just such a tough spot.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah. And I think that's kind of the range that people are like trying to navigate right now because there's so many options that are kind of all in the same tier. So, but yeah, Nathan, you got round 3.
I'm going to go with the guy that has not fallen outside of the first round in like 7 years, and that's Travis Kelce. I think Travis Kelce's price this year is more reasonable than it's ever been, and even though it's more reasonable now, it's not like it was unreasonable previously where he was still paying off and had, high win rates and advance rates even in the first round. But now, going at the tail end of the third, consistently falling there at this point, like I don't even care if he doesn't finish as the tight end 1 overall. At that price, if he's a top 3 tight end, you're totally fine. And he's getting plenty of targets. He's getting more targets than most of the guys that are producing as top 3, top 4 tight ends. Like he functions like a wide receiver. So I can't get enough of Travis Kelce.
I feel like there are scenarios this year in fantasy football drafts with the way that the ADP is sorted out where you can still stack Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes because they've both lost a fair amount of value compared to where they used to be going. Yep. But again, like when was the last time you were getting Travis Kelce this cheap?
It's been 7 years.
It's been years.
Yeah.
So with that, I mean, I totally agree. I think in round 4, it obviously gets a little bit hairy here. There's a lot of good tight end picks in this range, obviously, too. I think my favorite guy here would be Devonta Smith. Again, when we start getting kind of into these middle rounds here, obviously Nathan and I love going receiver hunting. I don't know about you, but like I tend to just focus on the best offenses here. And so with Devonta Smith, you've got an elite quarterback in Jalen Hurts. He's playing with another elite wide receiver in A.J. Brown. The situation there, obviously, last year was worse than when Shane Steichen was the offensive coordinator there. With that being said, it's still projected to be one of the best offenses in the NFL. And so you always just want pieces of passing games like that. And Devonta Smith is a guy in his first couple years in the NFL that has been really, really solid. I don't expect him to take a step back this year. He's one of the better route runners in the NFL. If he can take the top off a couple times this year and get more touchdowns, I actually feel like Devonta Smith is a guy that could outperform his ADP. You've seen him outperform this current ADP already in his career with the same receiving room. Dallas Goedert took a small step back last year. So it's going to be interesting, but playing with Saquon, I think that's going to help the receivers as well. So I like Devonta Smith in the 4th round, actually.
Yeah, and I do want to bring up, as we get further down the draft board, right, it is going to be different depending on the draft that you're in.
Yep.
When we're in round 1, we can all kind of sit here and go, yeah, we know these 9, 10, 11, these guys are going to be round 1 picks. We can almost do the same thing in round 2. But we may mention something that Devonta Smith goes round 4, and in your draft, he goes round 5. Like my round 5 guy here, some drafts, they're going to get pushed up. I really want to get either an elite quarterback or an elite tight end. Given the fact that we already went with an elite tight end with Travis Kelce in the 3rd, I'm going to stick it where if you can get either Mahomes, Lamar, if you could get Jalen Hurts, Josh Allen has no shot of making it to you. But if you can get them at the 4 or 5 turn, specifically in those leagues where you start 2 wide receivers and 1 flex, quarterback's going to make up such a high percentage of your starting lineup output from a week-to-week perspective that I think you are going to get a significant edge where the wide receivers that you are looking at in round 6 and 7 are still great options. Now, I do want to ask y'all real quick, if the elite quarterbacks are off the board, are y'all willing to take Anthony Richardson round 5?
That's a good question. Obviously, we're Colts fans. I was telling on another video, I was telling the Fantasy Land guys, I have not taken a single Richardson this year. It
Neither
just,
have I.
at price, it really scares me. I'm obviously worried about, from a passing standpoint, I'm worried about it. I still obviously think he can be a very fantasy relevant and fantasy elite player, even if his passing sucks, because we know that's possible. We saw Justin Fields play football last year and be fantasy relevant. But with that being said, I just feel like there are better options in the later rounds. I'd rather just punt quarterback if all of the elite options are off the board. I'd rather just punt quarterback and get quarterback in like the 10th, 12th round. But if you do have guys, I think a lot of times in home leagues, you're going to have those quarterbacks maybe even get pushed up because they're the most recognizable names. But that being said, if you have any of those guys fall, I think they're absolute smashes at ADP. So
yeah, I just think I think Kyler's just a much better value. He's going later than AR. He has less questions, and honestly, in a lot of ways, he has a better situation.
Yeah,
like
sure.
I just think not to mention the passing volume, which is proven. So that to me makes no sense why he's going below AR. So I'm going with him.
Yeah, you got the 6th.
Yeah, so the 6th round, it's Rashee Rice all day. If you can get Rashee Rice in the 6th round, which is pretty common, you need to take him all day long. Like it doesn't matter to me. It doesn't matter if your team need is elsewhere. If Rashee Rice falls into your lap in the middle of the 6th round, you need to take him all the time. Every single time. I think his safety in the Chiefs offense with Patrick Mahomes as the exclusive slot wide receiver and being like 6th in the league in yards after catch last year, despite his limited snap share, 3rd in the league.
Yeah, he was way up there. Yep.
Yeah, it's nuts to me. I think he's a lot safer than people give him credit for. And at this point, I'm not even worried about the legal
So
stuff.
I'll float a hypothetical to both of you. Where do you think Rashee Rice would be going in fantasy drafts if there wasn't
4th.
the 4th?
Well, if you look at it, if there was no off the field stuff, he's discount Amon-Ra St. Brown.
He really is.
Yes.
Like,
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, I feel like he's being slept on. I do feel like now that we're getting closer to the season and people are realizing like, okay, this guy actually might play this year. I feel like he's going to get pushed up a little bit, probably into the 5th and 4th round where he should be going.
Yeah, so if you look at best ball drafts where ADP updates a little more often, he has risen over the past like 6 weeks or so from literally being a 7th round pick to now he's going at like the 3-4 turn. Obviously, receivers going to be a little bit more expensive there. But in the home leagues, what you see is those apps like Sleeper, Yahoo, AS, they don't update ADP nearly as fast.
Exactly.
So Rice may still be going down in your home league in round 6 or 7. And in reality, most sharp drafters are actually taking him in rounds 4 and 5.
Yeah.
Every single fantasy draft that we've done so far with our supporters on Sleeper, he has gone in the 6th round.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah, he's a really good value this year. Yeah. So
Man.
in the 7th round, I'm going to take a rookie here. And again, limit your exposure to rookie. That's our whole thing. But I'm going to take Ladd McConkey here. I think you're getting some of these rookie wide receivers here in this like 7th, 8th round range pretty consistently. I also like Brian Thomas Jr. here. Xavier Worthy, I think, has crawled up more and is going now in the 6th round. So Ladd McConkey he's on an offense where there obviously is no alpha wide receiver. In fact, they are completely devoid of having an alpha wide receiver, which opens opportunity for Ladd McConkey to be really good this year. You've got Josh Palmer there. We pretty much know what Josh Palmer is, right? I mean, there were high expectations for him at times where Keenan Allen and Mike Williams were out, and he did show some flashes. But with that being said, I don't think Josh Palmer is a guy that's going to come in and have like a wide receiver 2 season here. And with Ladd McConkey, there are going to be plenty of targets to go around. I think a lot of people are shorting this offense because it's a Greg Roman offense, and people are they're just going to run the crap out of the ball. They're not going to let Herbert pass the ball. And I think Jim Harbaugh understands that he would be doing Herbert and the organization a disservice by not tapping into the talent that Justin Herbert is. Ladd McConkey obviously is the starting receiver there in LA, and so I think he's going to get a ton of work right away. I think he's going to get a lot of targets. And again, if I'm going to hunt for any rookies in any fantasy leagues ever, I'm just going to go for guys, especially receivers, that get a ton of targets because, as we know, direct correlation between targets and fantasy points. And this is a guy this year I think he can get a ton of targets. I'm actually really excited about Ladd McConkey more so than I was at the beginning of the offseason. So
yeah, I think him as well as like Keon Coleman are two guys that I didn't like as prospects, but you look at their situation and go, it's so good. It's hard to ignore that Ladd McConkey has a clear path to be the wide receiver 1 for one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL.
Yeah. I'm curious where you've seen Keon Coleman go recently.
Keon's been like a round 7, round 8 pick. I'm not going to go in that direction here in this draft because in a regular redraft league, I think the goal is like rounds 4, 5, 6, 7. You really load up on a couple wide receivers there. And once you transition a little bit to the later rounds, like here I'm looking at the Domain Gold League. I see that you've seen Javonte Williams go in the late 8th round. And if you look earlier in the offseason, Javonte Williams was a running back that didn't have great news. Like Sean Payton at one point came out and said, yeah, we're trying to figure out Samaje Perine or Javonte Williams is going to make the team.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh my gosh, I thought this guy was another year removed from the ACL. I thought he was set up to crush. God knows why he said that, because all the usage in the preseason shows that he is set up to be their starting running back. Bo Nix has looked good. Maybe this offense isn't as bad as people are expecting. And with Javonte, he is another year removed from the torn ACL. While there are a couple other running backs in the backfield, looks like Estime may not be something that you have to worry about. He's just a direct Javonte backup. And Javonte does have receiving upside if he were to be more efficient than Jaleel.
Yeah, I think you are still getting a discount. Again, the fantasy community a lot of times is really slow to react to current news. And with Javonte, there was such a bad reputation that he had from the reports coming out from really that one reporter that basically said, like, yeah, Javonte might not make the roster. It really tanked his value in fantasy football. And so if you can take advantage of that, I think he's a really good pick. And honestly, he's got some receiving upside too. I think Sean Payton is ready to roll with him this year. Even if it's not past this year, you've at least got it and you know he's going to get volume this year. So.
Awesome. Since we just went with running back, we'll go with the wide receiver here. There's a couple guys I like in the 9th rounds, but I think Christian Watson going in the 9th really isn't that bad of a pick this season. I think he's been overpriced in the past with all the questions that he's had in that offense, and now going in the 9th round is one of the first bench guys really that you're drafting who's kind of just a dart throw, and you can see maybe he has a route to be a high upside guy who can get explosive plays and maybe command a little more volume than he has before. At the end of the day, to me, it doesn't really matter what I personally think about it at that price. I think it's fine just taking him there and shooting your shot in an offense where really the lead wide receiver is in limbo, and it's really anyone's game there.
Yeah, for sure. And I'll go ahead and go around 10 here, and I'll go Jacoby Myers. Jacoby Myers is a guy that has outperformed his ADP by a wide margin each of the last 2 years, right? You look at last year, he was the wide receiver 24.5 PPR leagues. You look at the year before that, he was the wide receiver 28.5 PPR leagues. And granted, the situation is abysmal. However, the situation was abysmal last year too, and he still was a wide receiver too. With that being said, you do have Brock Bowers coming in there, and you expect Brock Bowers to take a lot of those targets. I expect this Raiders offense to be very highly concentrated at the top. I expect it to be Devontae Adams, Brock Bowers, Jacoby Myers, and that is it. You've seen flashes of it in the preseason game. Obviously, Jacoby was getting a lot of targets there while he was in. Devontae wasn't playing. But Jacoby Myers has pretty much been an under-the-radar fantasy asset for like 3 years straight now. Each time that you've drafted him in fantasy leagues, he has outperformed his ADP. And so going in the 10th round, again, for one reason or another, right? Bad situation. The quarterback play is really shaky. It hasn't really mattered. The dude played for the Patriots and then came and played for the Raiders and has had crap quarterback play. I'm just going to take my shot on a guy that has consistently outperformed his ADP and hope that he does it again this year.
Yeah, my thing with Myers is I think like he's a great example of a value in like a PPR league where you start 3 receivers, 2 flex spots, like a lot of the Dynasty formats that we play in.
Yep.
I would just question if it's a 2 wide receiver single flex league, if he has the upside to make a difference in that format. But I agree, like best ball in deeper leagues, I think he is super interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, you got round 11.
My round 11 guy, once I get to like the later rounds, it looks like when I'm looking at the Domain Gold League, y'all only had 13 rounds. So the last 3 rounds, I went back and did the historical data. Over 50% of the time, you are cutting the guys that you select here. Like they are guys you're turning right at the beginning of the year. So I want to be taking somebody that we are going to get a clear indication of what their role is at the beginning of the season. I think someone like Jermaine Burton's the worst guy to take here at the end because you're taking him going, oh, maybe he has upside late in the year. You can't cut him after week 1. But instead you go someone like Rico Dowdle. I don't know who the starting running back is in Dallas. We may get to week 1. Rico Dowdle may see 40, 50% of the touches. And okay, this is somebody that's going to have value. This is somebody that has upside if anything were to occur to Zeke. We may get to week 1 and Rico Dowdle all of a sudden is 20% of the backfield. And you go, okay, I know he's not going to be relevant, or more likely than not, he's not going to be relevant. And if you think you have the next Kyron, if you think you have the next Puka off the waiver wire, you can go in that direction. So I don't think Dowdle's a good player at all, but I think we are going to get clarity on him very early in the season. I think it's a very good offense, and I think he has the upside to be the starting back here.
I mean, it feels like Jerry Jones was doing absolutely everything he can to not sign a running back this offseason. I mean, like they literally went back a year after Zeke left, and they're like, yeah, you can go ahead and come back because we have absolutely nobody. Obviously, letting Tony Pollard go, I mean, nobody really knows. It's not going to be Deuce Vaughn, right? I mean, Ezekiel Elliott, we saw him be somewhat productive last year with the Patriots, but like outside of scoring touchdowns, you wonder what kind of upside he's going to bring to the offense from a receiving back perspective. And so when you wonder like who's going to be the third down back there, it could be Dowdle. You're not really getting anybody with that level of opportunity in this range besides him. So I think that's a great pick. So wrap us up here, buddy.
Yeah, 12th round. This is going to be the range where you start taking, if you faded tight end, a tight end. And one of the most consistent followers in this range that I think has way higher upside than a lot of people believe is Dallas Goedert. Consistently going in this range. And I really think that he's probably one of the safer guys that you can take where you're more confident than most assets in this range to stay on your roster for a significant amount of the season, barring injury. And I mean, he's shown the ability to produce on a points per game basis as a top 6 to 8 tight end. So you're definitely getting by with Dallas Goedert. I think in a good way when you're passing up on an elite tight end, taking values at other positions in the higher parts of the draft, and then just grabbing Goedert at the end, you're feeling pretty good.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, there you go. There's the best pick in every round of your fantasy football drafts this year. Thanks, Mason, for joining us. We really appreciate it. Guys, make sure you head over to flockfantasy.com/domain. When you use code domain, you unlock a team review from Nathan and I, Team Blueprint. You unlock our draft guide. You unlock our fantasy football rankings, our projections tool. You get the whole 9 yards. Everything you need to win your fantasy leagues, you can find it there. Like I said, use code domain to unlock all that. Make sure you like and subscribe. We appreciate you, and we'll see you later.